Join us for this episode of Thrive with R3. This is our first women's panel where we are talking with three prominent female leaders in the corporate space. We are talking about how to be your authentic self, the importance of well-being and self-care, mentoring and finding your people in workplaces, and the overall importance of modeling good, compassionate leadership in these settings. You're not going to want to miss this episode.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Thrive with R3. We have an exciting show for you today. We are going to have our first women's panel, and really excited for the caliber of talent that we have on this panel discussion today. I'm Jamie Gassmann, your host of Thrive with R3, and I'm here along with my co-host, Dr. George Vergolias. Hi, George. So real quick to introduce our panel members, we've got Kathy Robideau, Chief Growth Officer at Versique, Sara Dziuk, President and CEO at Junior Achievement North, and Elisha Engelen, Partner Human Capital Solution Client Leader at Aon. Welcome everybody to Thrive with R3. So we're going to jump right in because we've got a lot to talk about. And let's go ahead and get started in discussing your guys' career journey. So can you share the pivotal moments that shaped your career and brought you to where you are today? And I'm going to kick this off with starting with Kathy. Kathy, can you kick that conversation off? Give us your kind of background in your career journey and the pivotal moments you've had in your career.
So originally from Ohio, and I moved from Ohio. I was with a medical staffing firm years ago. After I'd been in the restaurant business, I'd kind of work all kinds of jobs while I was in school. And a pivotal time for me, I think, was going from Ohio to Florida and working. I was with that company for 10 years. And I had worked my way from a recruiter running a branch in Cincinnati to I was the chief operating officer when I left, and privately held. So, when you're privately held, you kind of do everything. Which I think honestly was a pivotal time for me because it allowed me to see that, even if I didn't have the knowledge or, the training to do something, I always was kind of that one to raise my hand like, oh, I'll do it. So I got a lot of great experiences while I was there. And then probably the most pivotal time is when, while I lived there, I had met my husband and I decided to move to Minnesota. So I quit my job there and ended up with the Minneapolis St. Paul Business Journal, which actually I was placed there by Versique, where I'm at now. So Versique placed me there in early 2010. And I would say that was a pivotal time because, I went from somewhere I knew and lived and friends and everything and kind of moved here just saying, hopefully this relationship works out, and got an apartment. And here I am. That was in 2006. So still working.
Well, I went to college for business management. And so when I had graduated, I really thought that my path was going to be in corporate America and that I was going to, find a big job and climb a corporate ladder. And when I graduated, I had two different options. I had an option to go and work for a bank, for a financial institution. And I had an option to go and work for a chamber of commerce. And that's sort of that first pivotal moment for me was instead of choosing the more corporate role, I chose to go and work at a chamber of commerce and a tourism organization. And I really haven't left that space through my career. I've stayed in that nonprofit environment. And so after doing that for about 5 years, once again, I said, I am a jack of all trades, a master of none. I am not in a corporate space. I really want to try that. So I took a position at an airline and worked there for 6 weeks and said, this is not my path. I need to be absolutely passionate about what I do every day. The work that I need to do needs to be closer to the community and to young people. And so after 6 weeks, I went back to that nonprofit space. And now have spent a number of years, both with Junior Achievement and then with an organization called College Possible. And so pivotal moments there, I actually went to Junior Achievement, worked there for a number of years, and loved the organization, but wanted to grow as a leader, wanted the opportunity to be an executive director of an organization. So I made that choice to move on to College Possible. And 10 years there is what prepared me to come back to Junior Achievement as the president and CEO of the organization, and really running something that's meaningful for students and volunteers and the community.
So I grew up in Minnesota, and I went all the way to Wisconsin for undergrad and then back to Minnesota. And I pursued education as a marriage and family therapist. And through that journey, I absolutely loved providing care for 20 years. And concurrently, why I did that, I got a job at Cigna as well as a national healthcare provider, really out of a means of making ends meet. Because as an up and coming therapist, didn't make a lot of money, had loans coming due. We all know the song, and started at Cigna. And I absolutely loved it there. And one of the pivotal points at Cigna for me was when I was flown out to be part of a design thinking session where we as an organization were looking at needing a solution for something. And through this process, we had our ups and downs in these sessions. And at one point they said, okay, now we need to do a report out. And my friend looked at me and she goes, well, I think you should do it. I thought, okay, out of 50 people in the room, it's me. And so I did it. And what that did is it showed me that I could take a chance and do something different, and started to build a skill set around really getting to the root cause of organizational needs and how do you create solutions around them. So I love doing that as a marriage and family therapist. This created a different platform for me to do that. And then as I was there loving my career, I got an opportunity to work with a mentee and mentor who I'll talk about, I think, as we go through here, but initially wasn't sure if she was a fit, and she was the best fit for me. She told me the truth. She drove me to think differently. And that's actually how I helped propel my career here at Aon, is taking a chance and doing something different. And it's been those things where happen to be both females that pushed me in those directions and encouraged me, and happy to be here today where I am.
Yeah, that's great. It's so fascinating to hear the different trajectories that people take and what opens them to like new opportunities, right? It's interesting. I've always approached my career. I always plan what I want to do next, and that never materializes. And then new opportunities just fall, but I have to do the planning. I have to go through the process. Related to that, I'm curious, have you ever been in a place where you've doubted your career path? And can you speak a little bit to that? And then what helped you move through that? Or how did you resolve that doubt?
So when I think about that career and how I thought I was going to be in more of a corporate space, and kept trying to find my way to that, and it just was never the right fit for me. And so when I left the Chamber of Commerce and went and took a corporate communications job, I was there for 6 weeks. And during that 6 weeks, the company happened to be going through bankruptcy at the time, and I was doing communications. So probably not exactly the right fit at the right time. But I found in that environment that I wasn't passionate about what I was doing. And I was so used to doing so many things that being specialized around one thing didn't fill my cup. And so in those 6 weeks, I really challenged myself, because that was what I had always wanted to be doing, and it wasn't working for me. And I challenged myself to figure out why, and to get to the point where I could say, I don't want to do this. This doesn't fulfill me. I don't see a future and a path here. And to be at the point, I've never been someone that quits something or fails at something. And so it was a moment for me, an aha moment, to say, this is better for me right now to know this and call this and go down the right path than to try to make something work that I just don't think is ever going to work. And so it was good for me to learn that. I think it was good for the organization that I didn't stay longer than I needed to. And it was good for me to move on and really find my passion as a leader and in my work.
What I love about that, Sara, and Jamie and I, and a lot of the folks that we talk to, many of us are very driven, call it type A, call it very motivated, right? It's easy to get stuck in that sense of, I'm not going to fail at this. I'm going to just buckle down. I'm going to just grind this down and stay 5 years. And you look up, you're like, I've been here for 6 years. What am I doing? I think it's wonderful to hear a story where someone said real quickly, hey, this isn't working, right? And I forget what productivity guru, I heard it from Simon Sinek, but I know it predates Simon Sinek. This notion of most companies don't have a hiring problem, they have a firing problem. Like, in other words, we don't say no fast enough to something. And what was great about your story is you quickly realize this is not a good fit, and I'm moving on to find my place where I really belong. So thanks for sharing that. That's great.
For me, I think because of the clinical path I had and all the time and money and effort I had invested into my clinical career, there was that time where I made a shift at my previous employer at Cigna, where I went from clinical to developing more programs and processes that were focused on the internal employee. And it wasn't easy because your customer base went from external to internal to now it's your peers, now it's your colleagues. And that was a hard road. It was one of those things where, as I watched people who stayed within their same clinical path, I watched them grow and develop, move up the ladder, as Sara had alluded to, this dream of moving up the ladder. And what I quickly realized is that as I was making a shift to where I am now, I became more marketable over time by going off of the path that one would have thought I needed to take. And this morning I got to meet someone new and shared that I was a marriage and family therapist. And it just creates this intrigue, right? Of when you go off the path and are doing something different, how do you bring those skill sets somewhere else? And I think time helps you trust and build confidence in that, because in the moment, it's really scary. And then as you conquer things and get feedback and hard feedback to switch, as you're moving, my path's not done. That is the piece that I think over time has built that confidence for me.
One of the common things I'm hearing from each of you is raise your hand for the things you're not sure you can do, but you want to stand up and learn and do them. And also, the career path isn't always going to be exactly what you had envisioned it to be. So that was kind of there's some really interesting common threads with each of your guys' responses, which is awesome. So looking at women in leadership, we often face some unique challenges that might be a little bit different than men or others in our space. So what barriers have you encountered, and what mindset or strategies have helped you to overcome them?
I think one of the things I've learned as I've gotten older is I did have a lot of challenges. I was the only woman on the executive leadership team when I was with the medical staffing firm. It was that way when I started here. And I look back and I think a lot of the challenges I had, I didn't realize at the time those were actually challenges until now. I'm like, wow, that was actually, yes, that was not right. Or that was, you know what I mean? I just didn't know, because back then it was just kind of like, look, be the first one to work, do this. If you want to move up, these are things you need to do. I also think, I was always told, okay, you're too emotional, you're too passionate, you're too, you're too this, you're too that. And I remember, now I realize, well, that's what also makes me do well, perform well as a leader, perform well as a colleague, and all those things that have helped me in my career is because I am passionate, I am emotional and things like that. But I really had to overcome. I remember sometimes, thinking you better hold it together in here, because you're going to be seen as, oh, well, she's too emotional. Here we go, and things like that. So that was a challenge. And now I just don't care, because it's part of who I am. And I think some of that is you learn over time, right? You're in different situations, but I shouldn't say I don't care. I manage things better, but I also realize that part of the reason I've been successful is because I have emotion and I'm passionate and things like that. So it's a good thing. It's not a negative.
No, I love that you shared that, because I know it's I can't cry in this meeting. Keep it together. Don't bring the tears to it. But sometimes you just cannot keep them from coming out when it's a tricky situation. So love that you shared that.
Kathy, I'm very similar in that I am a more emotional person. I'm more vulnerable with sharing how I feel about things, or when I appreciate someone. I mean, I go through performance reviews with people and I will get emotional because I'm so proud of the work that they've done, or I just feel such a connection with them. And so for so long, I would apologize for these things. I would apologize for showing up that way. And it's taken a number of team members or colleagues or board members that have said, like, that's the beauty of your leadership. It's so authentic and it's so real. And it brings out emotions in people that are really good and healthy. And so it's taken me a while to embrace that and recognize that that's really a strength. And a lot of people need that and are looking for that in a leader. And then I would also say it's, as a woman that has continued to grow my career, thinking about, having a family and that balance of continuing to grow, continuing to take on more responsibility or bigger roles, and thinking about having kids has always been a factor that I don't think that it has been, right, for my husband. And I think about, 15 or so years ago when we had been going through IVF for a couple of years, and I was interviewing for a job. And I remember telling the employer, I'm going through this. There's a chance that I'll be pregnant in the next few months. I just want to be really upfront if I get this job, that's a reality for me. And my husband wasn't having that same conversation with an employer, right? And did I need to share that? No. But did I feel like I needed to? Yes. Did I feel like I needed to be upfront in that, in knowing going into a new job that I may be having a child? Yes. And that just, I still look back to that and think, as a woman, that wasn't something that I needed to do, but I felt like I needed to do it.
How do you all approach setbacks or whatever you define as failures throughout your career? And how have you moved through those in a way that you maintain momentum and you maintain confidence? I mean, anyone can have a crisis of confidence after a setback. But some of those environments, particularly Kathy, you were talking about being the only woman in the room, and those environments where you have a setback, I could see it even being more pronounced or feeling like it could be more pronounced. How have you guys navigated that?
So I think, one of the things, like I mentioned earlier, I feel like early and really even into the last couple of years, I almost would not put myself in a situation to fail, because I just, I had fear of it. I was worried about failing, or I only really, I would say, did things that I felt really confident doing. But I also, a lot of times if I have been the only one that thought, we should do this and here's why. And fortunately, a lot of things have worked out, in my favor. But I think I always remind, whether it be, colleagues or, my boss or things like that. Like, if we're not trying anything, like, you got to try, you've got to be willing to fail. And I have to remind myself that too, you've got to be willing to fail, or you're never really going to take, there's might be things out there that you don't even know are out there because you're not even willing to do something different or to try something. And I always say I am absolutely willing to take 100% accountability. I think a lot of times it's like nobody really wants to take the accountability. Well, this person, somebody did this or that, and that's what happened. And I always say, look, I'll be the head on the chopping block. That's kind of what I always say. I'm willing to be the head on the chopping block in order for us to, either try things or try new things, or be willing to put ourselves out there, because I just think it's important when you think about growth, even whether it be personally or professionally, really, unless you're trying new things or putting yourself out there, you're really not allowing yourself or pushing yourself to try something new and maybe be successful in the next thing.
I think with the setback question, I think first of it is having the courage to identify it. So somewhat, I think in what you're saying, Kathy, is like identify the setback. I think in today's day and age, people have a really hard time just identifying what's not working, and almost this denial piece of it. So for me, it's about identifying the setback and identifying it before someone else does, because there's power within that. Like, you have an opportunity to help course correct things, do things a little bit differently. And also, I think there's value in seeing the writing on the wall, because there's times where my setback might be more around, I'm not the right fit for a situation in a scenario, and trying to make something work can be more detrimental and continue to have setbacks, versus I think it takes a lot of courage to say, this isn't working, or I need to do something different in doing that. And I also value having transparent conversations with people I trust, to say, this is where I'm at, this is what I've contributed, this is how this rolled out. What are your thoughts? Because I just appreciate being able to be honest and forthcoming. And you got to be careful in who you do that with. But once you have that network, you can move mountains. And that self-awareness piece is, I think, also part of that, is how I would summarize part of what I'm saying as well.
What I love about this whole discussion is it really is a growth mindset that you all are, that everyone is talking about, right? Which is this sense that, setbacks or failures are, they're taken seriously, but not personally. And that's what you find with elite athletes, right? When they, when they miss a shot, LeBron or Kobe, or I'm a Chicago fan back in the day, so Michael Jordan, I always go back to him. But when, they miss a shot, they take it seriously, but they don't take it personally. So that what that does, it motivates them to get back in the gym and build on that and continue to grow.
But I want to touch on something, Elisha, you brought up in terms of kind of finding that network and kind of finding what we're calling in this podcast, like your allies and your advocates. And it could be mentors or mentees, but people that have helped you to kind of propel your career forward. And, how has that support that you've received from them been impactful for you? And like, how have you leveraged that to continue to grow personally or professionally? So we'll go ahead and start with you, because you mentioned it in your response to the last question. I think it'd be great to hear kind of some of your perspective on that.
I feel like what I've learned over time is that no matter how hard you work or how determined you are, you're never going to do it alone, right? You need to have that circle around you. And I think that circle can look a lot of different ways. And so I've been really fortunate in a nonprofit space that I've always had a board of directors. And when I think about that board, my board of junior achievement is 50 people strong, which is a very large board. But what that is for me is it's 50 advocates and allies. It's 50 people that know me and trust me and believe in me, and that I can reach out to at any moment with a challenge, and they're going to be there. That I can suggest a bold move and they're going to have my back. And that has allowed me to continue to have the confidence to grow and to make some of those choices and decisions. And Kathy's actually on my board. And so I'm so grateful that she is one of those people and has been one of those people for me that is absolutely an advocate and an ally. And then I just think about the mentors that I've had through parts of my career where it's really that one-on-one. I can be my true self. They give me the feedback that I need. I can ask the tough questions. And then I just think about the circles when you talk about sort of blending that personal and professional, thinking about the circles of people that you have, the women and men that you can go to when there's a challenge, and they're your personal board of directors that can kind of help you think through aspects of life and career as well. And so I look at all of those pieces, and just there's so much value in having all of that in life and in career.
So we've been having such a great conversation about that power of allyship and mentors and having people in your court and advocates. So for some who might be listening to this going, well, how do I cultivate that? How do I find those people that would be good mentors or good coaches or good allies for me? I'd love to hear from the group. What are some of your best ways that you've identified them? Have they come organically? How do you watch for that then if it comes organically? And then or how have you sought that out? If you've actually sought that out, where you've seen somebody maybe speak and gone, I want you to mentor me. I think you're amazing, that kind of thing. So share with us, how have you cultivated those relationships so that you've had that group that you can lean in on?
So I think for me, it's happened a couple ways. Some I've been assigned through programs, like with the Mentium program I've alluded to and really enjoyed. That was an assignment. What I've done more recently in joining, because I've been with Aon for 3.5 years, is I'm new. I'm new to the space, right? It's all new people. And what I have done is through different projects and work I've been doing, people that I have similar interests with or energy with, just really leaning in a little bit more with them and asking more questions and connecting with them. And in that, it's what value can I bring to you as I'm seeking something from them and having that being connected. I recently made a role change here at Aon, and through that, part of it was by introduction, and then part of it was, and I'll give a lot of credit to my colleagues, is that I would meet someone who'd say, "You need to meet with this person, or you need to meet with that person." And part of what I would end each conversation with is, could we connect again? And getting that buy-in from people and that investment, and then asking them, what else can I do in partnership with you? Like, how do you take that conversation and bring value to them as well, and maybe in the business, and then following back up? And I've also had meetings with people where I realize it's not a vibe, and I thank them and we move on, and that's great. And I see them maybe somewhere else as well. Um, in addition, I think the other piece to all of this is it is the differences in ages and genders and location, because I think that's another piece, that really being eclectic within that and seeking those folks out. And more so this last year, I think I have been able to do that, is connecting with people outside of my area of expertise, um, and asking them for assistance, and then making sure that I'm following up on what we're talking about, and growing from that. And the last thing I would say too is just being 100% pure with my intention and what I'm needing, and what I'm seeking. It really helps them to help me.
So much of the best mentoring is organic. I do a lot of consulting with very big companies and big firms, and they have dedicated mentoring programs where it's like, welcome to XYZ company. Here's your mentor that's gonna, and sometimes they hit it off, but sometimes they just don't. They don't have that level of engagement, or that level of curiosity, or that authenticity that you guys are all speaking to. So I really love that. I love that. I love that level of input. Um, so I think we got to this next question. So I'm going to move to well-being, which is such a huge part, right, of what all of us do to keep ourselves focused, to keep performing at the highest level that we can. So you all have very busy lives, in jobs, of course, but lives. How do you prioritize your well-being, and how do you find, whether it's balance or synthesis, how do you find that in your life?
I think one of the things that I have learned over the years and different companies and roles I've been in in leadership is that it's some days I'm going to be better at work and maybe not as much at home, and other days I shift to be more at home and not as much at work, and that's okay, because type A, driven. I want everything to be great for everyone at all times. And it's just if someone figures that out, they're going to be a billionaire, because I don't know, I think a lot of times people think that when you get to a certain level or you're in leadership, like you figured it out, or it's all, no, it's not. But I've also learned over time, I've protected, I go to a kettlebell class at Lifetime at 5:30 on Tuesdays. That's protected. Although I've learned earlier, no one's really bothering you that much at 4:30 in the morning. So it is a good, it's a good kind of a good time to protect. Um, and then, I do some walking. So I have learned with myself, if I don't get time for me, then I am not a good mother. I'm not a good wife. I'm not a good leader. I just have gotten to know and understand that about myself. So I've also gotten more, okay with saying, nope, that's my time, setting those boundaries. I need that time, or I'm just not going to, I'm going to unravel, and whether it be at home or at work. I think it definitely takes time, and it takes, you know, almost courage to say, okay, this is my time and I need it. But I just think it's critical to, well-being, physically, mentally.
It's great, like if we have behaviors and things that we're doing to support our well-being, but how are you bringing that into your organization? So how are you encouraging people that you lead to take care of themselves too? Because I mean, obviously as leaders, we've identified that there's a necessity there, or that there's, some level of balance or some level of support to our well-being is important. How do we make sure that our employees are doing the same thing?
I sit down with every new hire when they join the organization. And one of the first things that I say is, this is a job. This is not your whole life. Like, there is life outside of what you're doing here. And while this is important, and while when you're here, we want your focus and your attention and great work, you have a family and pets and commitments and passions and obligations outside of this place. And those are priority. And so when you are sick, when something is going on and you need to care for someone else, when you need the time, you take the time. And so from day one, people hear that directly from me. And I make sure that I model that as well. So when I am sick, I take the time and no one hears from me. And if members of my senior team are sick and they're sending messages, we have a conversation about not doing that, because we want to exhibit to the rest of the team, when you're sick, take care of yourself. Work can wait. When you're on PTO, take that time for yourself. Work can wait. And so we've also just done things within our environment, not only to model that, but to create that time and flexibility for people so they really feel like they have it. So we've created extra times at fiscal year end to give people just a full week off to relax and recharge. And when everybody's off, everybody's off. Then you're not caught up in who's emailing, who's back, what work needs to get done. We do the same thing at year end, or in the holiday season. We do 2 weeks off to just say to people, you need this, take this time. You will be better when you come back if you've taken the time that you need. And so we've just been really thoughtful about, how do we create a flexible environment that supports the whole person and not just the work person.
I want to hit on the psychological safety. One of the things I see so much, and I think you're all capturing this, and I see it so much when I'm consulting with C-suite or senior leaders, is this notion of take care of yourself, do all the right things, take PTO, but they never do it. And so the image is, you guys all take care of yourself, but I've got armor on and I never fall in battle. And so then the message is, and I think you all were getting at this in different ways, is the subtle message, the overt message is go take time off the battlefield. But the subtle message is, no one really should leave the battlefield because I don't. So the ability to be vulnerable as a leader.
What's the most fulfilling part about your role? You're being a leader, and what legacy do you hope to leave?
I talked about this a little bit earlier. I love making bold moves. I love casting a big, bold vision for the organization and moving us towards that. And it is always to do right by people. It is always to do right by our students, to do right by the community, by volunteers, by partners. And a priority for me has always been do right by the team, do right by the people that are doing this work day in and day out. And so when I think about a legacy, what I want is to have made those bold choices, shown courage, and cared for people.
Helping people achieve things that they don't think they're ready for, and kind of pushing them to, pushing them to think bigger. Like when you see, I feel like throughout my career, I've had people that saw something in me that I didn't see. So doing that, I would say, is super fulfilling for me, like helping people see things and then having success along the way. And then as far as a legacy, I have always felt I work for the team members, as in a leadership role. It's not about, I work for everybody that works within these walls. When I started here, I sat down with all 50 employees and did one-on-ones, because I want to get to know people. And I always say, how can I serve you? The servant leader mindset is, and I really feel that that's, as far as a legacy goes, I want I want to know that I was a leader who made it wasn't about me, but it was about how I was serving everyone around me.
I think for me, it's about being the voice for people in a room they're not in. And as a leader, when you're observing a culture or a behavior, speaking up. I have had times in my career where we as teams have had to make decisions around people's employment. And that's really hard. And one of the things I finally was able to root myself in to move forward with making those sorts of decisions around the right place or not is if you don't put the right people in the right place, you affect other people. And so that's that piece around if there's one person within a group that maybe isn't doing the role or is not psychologically safe, what's happening is the impact to other people. And so I think it's about being that voice that's willing to say this isn't a fit so that everyone else can be in a place that's safe and great. That's just so key to me because it's hard to speak up sometimes and it's hard to like have the unpopular opinion or make a decision that impacts somebody, but you got to think about the bigger system and you got to think about how you're going to the bat for the people who really don't have a choice. They have a choice, they can leave, but they're looking to for you as a leader to lead them and have that courage.
If you had one single piece of advice to give working parents or professionals or women, however you want to kind of answer that, or all three, what would it be?
No one has it figured out, no matter what their position, no matter what their title. No one has it figured out. And I think I will say one of the things I've learned is just be you, be your authentic self, be whether it's, passion, emotion, whatever you bring to the table, you're your best when you're being yourself. And I think that is something, instead of trying to hide certain aspects of who you are, focus on the things you do well and if you bring your authentic self to work, I just think really then you will have peace, and then it gives you a level of confidence. And I think, especially from a, mentally, it'll be less challenging.
I would say yes. And I would also say, find your people, find those people that will have your back, find those people that when you are struggling with the balance, when you are doubting yourself, when you are thinking about taking that next opportunity or that next step, who are those people that can be there with you through it, that can challenge you, that can pump you up, that can support you? Because this isn't a journey to do by yourself. You will be so much stronger and more confident and more successful if you surround yourself by people that you can support and that can support you.
The part I would say is own your path. I think early on in my career, I thought if I hooked on to the right leader or the right role, that would just take me through, right? Like thinking around a ladder concept or a leader concept. Well, leaders come and go. And my path is my path, and it's always going to be there as long as I'm choosing to do that. And so I think some ability to see that it's about your journey and your path. People are part of that, but one person doesn't define it. You're really you're really the captain and bringing people with that can help you, but not relying on one person or one path to be success.
Well, thank you all so much for being on this episode. Very inspiring. I don't think any of the listeners didn't take something away from that, and really just appreciate you all being here. Thank you so much. Thank you all for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Thrive with R3.
R3 is a workplace behavioral health pioneer and innovator, providing rapid response and ongoing behavioral health solutions that help people and organizations recover, perform, and thrive in the wake of disruption and stress.
For more episodes, insights, and resources, visit thrivewithr3.com.